Get you some money, you're gonna feel different.
Straight up.
You might even, all that other advice I could have gave you, this is the short version. You know, get you a couple dollars, man. You're gonna feel different.
Next Nip Hustle. Big shout out to SPI, Spotter Low. You know, I'm in the black box. Had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Stay tuned. All that.
All-Star JR updated just gets worse. Woo, when it rains, it pours. 504 Street doing the heavy lifting. With no further ado, let's see what my folks say he's been up to.
Today, I want to shed light on some powerful tools that the FBI uses to fight crime. They're called racketeering and RICO. Let me break it down for you. Racketeering refers to a pattern of illegal activity carried out by an organized group or individual. It often involves acts like bribery, extortion, money laundering, or even violence. And that's where RICO steps in. RICO stands for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
And police are searching for the man they say opened fire inside of a popular restaurant last night.
Yeah, police say this all started with an attempted robbery inside Confessions on Kirby Drive.
HPD says that two men are in very critical condition after a double shooting at a bar and restaurant in Upper Kirby.
ABC 13's Chaz Miller is live this morning outside Confessions on Kirby near Richmond.
All-Star JR is a Detroit rapper with a prior felony conviction who was arrested on federal weapons charges connected to a shooting in Houston on April the 9th of 2026. This is the surface level. This is what most people are talking about. But if you understand...
April 9th, I'll never forget that day because that's my little brother's birthday. What up, Derek? Your old ass. If it slow down, you're going to be old as me.
And how the federal government builds cases, the surface level is not the story. The story is what the arrest is being used to construct. And what it is being used to construct is something much larger than one night on Kirby Drive.
Part 1, the entry point.
The federal government does not charge the top of an organization first. They never have. That is not how RICO cases get built. What they do is find a person at a lower level, somebody with federal vulnerability, somebody already in the system, somebody who now has every incentive to talk. And they use that person as the entry point into something bigger. All-Star JR is a convicted felon who discharged a firearm at a Houston restaurant, severely injuring Ben Anthony Fields. Members of mob ties were also present. JR is now in federal custody, sitting inside a federal case that could put him away for years. That combination makes him exactly the kind of person the government builds RICO cases around, not as the target, as the tool. To understand why the feds would be interested in J. Prince Jr. and mob ties specifically, you have to understand what a RICO actually requires. The government needs to prove the existence of an enterprise. They need to prove a pattern of racketeering activity. And they need to prove that the defendants participated in that enterprise through...
They got a lot of online content and comments that can help them prove that point. Not saying that it will, but niggas have said a lot.
That pattern. A pattern means at least two predicate acts connected to the same organization over a period of time. Predicate acts under RICO include robbery, murder, extortion, and a range of other qualifying criminal conduct. One incident is not a pattern, but the government is not looking at one incident. Duke the jeweler was a Chicago jeweler who was at a Boosie concert in Houston. According to multiple reports, Duke had been playing dice with J. Prince Jr. and licked the dice game for 100 racks. Duke was walking to his whip when he was ambushed and fatally shot. A man who had just been in close proximity to J. Prince Jr. hours earlier ended up dead before he made it to his whip. That is the kind of incident that becomes a predicate act in a federal RICO case.
Police say a jeweler was shot several times after he was set up and robbed. This happened last night on Navigation Boulevard.
Is she black? She got a different look. Oops.
Stephanie Whitfield joins us live from HPD headquarters. And Stephanie, first of all, how was this man doing this morning?
Right now, we're told that he's in his 30s. Police say that he's in critical condition in the hospital after he was shot multiple times. Police tell us he thought he was meeting potential customers to sell jewelry. They'd planned to meet up outside an apartment complex on Navigation. This was just before 9 last night. When 2 men arrived, investigators say they jumped the victim and shot him several times when he tried to fight back.
At that point, the suspects went in his pockets, robbed him, and then took off behind us and ran down the street on foot.
The government does not need to prove who pulled the trigger to use that incident as part of the enterprise's pattern. They need to connect the violence to the organization. They need to show that the enterprise benefited or facilitated or created the conditions for that violence. Duke the Jeweler's robbery and murder sits inside the broader picture. The government is building around mob ties.
I was just on my mouth and said, if that's the case, you know the Takeoff's gonna be part 4 of the Takeoff case.
Then you have the Takeoff situation. The Migos rapper Takeoff was shot and killed November of 2022 at a bowling alley in Houston. The man charged with that murder recently made a significant legal move, swapping in high-profile defense attorneys as trial approaches. Court filings show the attorney substitution happening as the case gets ready to go before a jury. That case exists inside the same Houston environment where J. Prince Jr. and mob ties operate. The government catalogs these things, homie. They map the geography. They map the relationships. They map the incidents. And when the patterns start emerging across multiple violent incidents in the same city, connected to the same circles, the RICO starts taking shape. JR's arrest is the government planting the flag. That flag says we are here. We are watching. We have somebody in custody who was a victim to the same environment as the people we are building a case on. And now everything connected to that person, his communication, his associations, his knowledge of what happened and who was involved flows into a file that is going to get used as a much larger proceeding. The felon in possession charge is real and it carries serious time. But in the context of a developing RICO investigation, it is also a lever. That lever is the government creating pressure that can be converted into cooperation if that boy decides.
A lever, something that provides leverage.
That fighting is not in his best interest.
J. Prince Jr. was there.
J. Prince Jr. was physically present at confessions the night of the shooting. That is documented. Said, bruh, that boy has publicly denied knowing JR was going to be there, claiming he was there for a birthday dinner. The government does not need to disprove that explanation to include that night in a RICO investigation. What they need is to document that pattern of incidents surrounding mob ties, connect them to an enterprise. Jr.'s presence at that location where the shooting occurred, a shooting involving a convicted felon who is now in federal custody, is a data point. One data point among what appears to be multiple data points. The government is now connecting.
Government ain't no joke, boy. FEDS uses social media.
So peep game, something that people on the outside consistently underestimate about how RICO cases get built is the role that social media plays in the government's evidence collection. J. Prince Jr. is active on social media, and it ain't no secret that JR was active on social media after the shooting, posting, referencing what happened in ways that he apparently believed was protected by ego. Some shits are not protected by anything, homie. Every post, every caption, every tag location, every person in every photo, all of it is being archived by federal investigators who know how to read social media the way a detective reads a crime scene. This generation of federal prosecutors has become extremely sophisticated at turning social media documentation into courtroom exhibits, and the people connected to this situation have been very generous with their documentation.
What's important, the cooperation dynamic, part 7.
So dig this here. There's also the cooperation dynamic that develops inside a multiple defendant federal investigation. JR was not the only person in the restaurant that night who now has federal exposure or federal interest. Every person who was present, every person whose name appears in the investigation, every person connected to the organization who has their own prior history, all of them are now sitting inside a situation where loyalty versus self-preservation is being calculated individually. The government is very good at identifying who in that circle has the most to lose and the least ability to pay a defense attorney. Those are the people who eventually pick up the phone and call.
This gangster shit was only made for certain people. Swear to God.
Prosecutor before the prosecutor calls them. All facts.
Part 9, attorney swap
Mob ties has been generating controversy and legal troubles long before the restaurant shooting even existed, homie. The attorney swap in the Takeoff murder case is worth paying attention to as well. When a defendant in a high-profile murder case connected to the same Houston streets brings in a new high-profile defense counsel as trial approaches, it signals that the legal stakes around that case are being reassessed. Say, bruh, high-profile defense attorneys do not just handle the case in front of them. They also assess the broader exposure their client may be facing from other related investigations. The move to bring in that level of representation this close to trial tells you something about how seriously the people connected to this world are taking what appear to be building around them.
And the financial layer.
The financial layer of a RICO investigation is something that runs differently to everything else and is largely invisible to the public. When the government is building an enterprise case, they are not just documenting violence. They are documenting money, where it comes from, where it goes, who benefits from it, how it moves between people connected to the organization. The music industry provides cover for a lot of financial movement in that investigation that investigators find very interesting when they are building a RICO case. Record deals, concert revenues, merchandise, brand partnerships, all of it can become relevant when prosecutors are trying to establish that an enterprise generated proceeds through racketeering activity. The feds call it in furtherance of a criminal enterprise. What that means is any capital earned was used to fund the organization. The government has forensic accountants, homie, whose entire job is to follow the money inside organizations like this, and they are thorough.
11, the government is not in a hurry.
The government is not in a hurry. Federal RICO investigations run for years before they produce indictments. The file being built right now around J. Prince Jr. and mob ties is going to keep growing, whether or not anyone on the outside can see it growing. Every incident, every arrest, every recorded phone call, every documented financial transaction, every cooperation agreement signed by a lower level defendant. All of it feeds into a case that the government will not present until they are ready. And when they are ready, they will announce it. There will be no warning. It will just be an indictment, and by the time that indictment drops, case will already be on fire. There was something else happening in this case that sits beneath all the public noise. Patrick Clark bringing in new high-profile defense attorneys is not just a courtroom logistic decision, homie. Defense attorneys at that level do not take cases at the last minute. They assess the full landscape of exposure the client faces, not just the immediate charge in front of, but the broader legal environment surrounding that client. When you
money and that, just don't think attorneys don't suffer from the clout chasing epidemic too. So they will go against what's traditional for one of these high profile cases these days, you ask me.
bring in the heavy representation close to trial in the murder case connected to the same world that federal investigators appear to be mapping, it means somebody in that circle understands that what is being built may eventually reach beyond the people who are being charged. That attorney move is to tell law story, bruh, and federal investigators retell law stories.
Behavior.
When a potential RICO target learns that federal investigators are building a case around his organization, his behavior changes. He starts making calls. He starts moving things. He starts distancing himself publicly from certain people in certain situations. Every single one of those reactions is observable by investigators who are already watching. Every financial transaction that suddenly stops, a relationship that gets publicly severed, every communication that gets made in the days and weeks after he finds out. All of it is additional material. Information going out also functions as a collection mechanism, pulling new behavior in.
What was already known before the
R is sitting in federal custody with a court date in front of him in years of potential prison time behind the charge he's facing. What he knows about what happened to him that night, who was there, what was said, what the relationships were between the people in that building, what he has observed and how mob ties operates. All of that is being used as negotiation tools by the feds. That is the government's entry point. And entry points in the federal RICO investigations have a way of becoming something very significant, very fast. Once the defendant inside that entry point decide cooperation is the better path. One thing does not get discussed enough when people talk about federal RICO investigations is how much the government already knows before the first arrest ever happens. By the time that boy GR got charged, the investigators working the case had already been collecting phone records, financial records, surveillance, digital forensics. The arrest was not the beginning of the investigation. It was a moment inside an investigation that was already running. Everything that comes after the arrest, the recorded calls from custody, informant reports, the cooperation gets laid on top of a foundation that was already being built. That foundation is what makes RICO cases stick, homie. The arrest produced witnesses and new evidence, but the structural case was being assembled long before anyone got taken into custody.
Basically, the chapter the public hasn't seen yet.
The broader picture being assembled here connects multiple incidents of violence in the same city to the same organizational relationships. Jeweler robbed and killed after winning from J. Prince Jr. Shooting at a Houston restaurant. Mob-ties members were present. A murder case connected to the same Houston streets where attorneys are being swapped out as trial approaches. These are not isolated incidents to federal investigators, homie. They are chapters in the document that is being written right now. The person whose name appears on the center of that document is watching all of this unfold while investigators work the case from directions he cannot fully see. The Oz weapon case is not the end of this story, homie. It is the beginning of a chapter that the public had not yet seen.
Oh boy, he is pretty well versed usually on how the feds work. Even when he talk about the big UKs in other cases, I tend to believe he has an idea of what's going on. And with that being said, J. Prince, you better run, duck, and hide. They might be coming. And that's the junior, really. I don't know about senior.
Get you some money, you're gonna feel different.
Straight up.
You might even, all that other advice I could have gave you, this is the short version. You know, get you a couple dollars, man. You're gonna feel different.
Big shout out to SPI, Spotter Low. You know, I'm in the black box, had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Stay tuned, all that.